Washington, D.C. They're going to make some preliminary statements, and then they're going to proceed. Thank you.
The Honorable Professor Piekałkiewicz, General Wiśniewski, dear family members and friends, it's a great honor for me to travel from Houston, Texas to Lawrence, Kansas to celebrate, to be part of the celebration of the 95th birthday of Professor Piekałkiewicz. It's a double honor because I've come here on a mission to decorate Professor Piekałkiewicz the Cross of Valor of the Republic of Poland. The Cross of Valor was established in 1920, just 2 years after Poland regained independence, after 123 years of being non-existent as a free state. The same year, the Battle of Warsaw took place, when Polish forces stopped the Russian Red Army on their march to whatever they were able to grab from Europe and introduce their communist rule. Very important year. So in the early days, the Cross of Valor, which is a decoration and special medal which is awarded to those who showed special effort and heroism during combat. So in its early days, it was awarded to foreigners. It was the only military decoration that was awarded to foreigners. Some of the people who received this were French President Raymond Poincaré, French Prime Minister Georges Clemenceau, French Marshal Philippe Pétain, Queen Elizabeth of Belgium, Prince Leopold of Belgium. Some of the most notable Poles who were awarded this decoration were General Władysław Anders and Stefan Rowecki. I'm gonna decorate Professor Piekałkiewicz with this Cross of Valor in a moment, and let me explain why. At the age of 15, instead of being preoccupied with soccer, baseball while in America, or basketball, or how to get good marks at school, Professor Piekałkiewicz at the age of 15 joined the Polish resistance during the Second World War. Those were the times where 15-year-olds had choices and made choices. Polish resistance at the Second World War during that time was the largest resistance force in German-occupied Europe. Professor Piekałkiewicz fought in the Warsaw Uprising, which is the third reason why this is a very important celebration for me in personal terms. My family is from Warsaw. My uncle was killed in the Warsaw Uprising on the second day of the uprising. He was my mom's favorite brother. And I had stories. I had a lot of stories about those times, first-hand stories. And I'm gonna fast forward because you all know the bio of Professor Piekałkiewicz. Once in America, he didn't stop thinking about Poland. He was a professor at Kansas University, and he was educating generations of young Americans about Eastern Europe, about politics, about Poland. What's even more important, he wrote a book, How Poles Were Saving Jews. And it's really important, especially in those times, in our present times. there are fewer and fewer people who can give first-hand testimony of what was happening. And we're witnessing manipulating history. We're witnessing shifting responsibilities. We're witnessing very interesting historical phenomena among scholars, academics, but basically among politicians. Let me give you an example. I'm gonna be short. 2 years ago, I was having an exhibit about Poland during the Second World War. I was showing the exhibit in various places in Texas, and including universities. And during one of those presentations in a Texas university, I asked the question because I didn't feel that the students gathered there and academics and teachers, I didn't have a feeling that they knew very well what it was all about. And they even knew nothing about the manipulating and changing history at present times. So I asked, can anybody tell me who a Nazi is? And there was a long silence. And during those seconds of silence that was piercing everybody's ears, eventually someone wanted to say something, one of the teachers. And she said, a Nazi is someone scary. So when I was a school kid, it was all clear. There were Germans, there were Poles, there were Jews, there were Russians, there were Americans, and the rest. And I had an opportunity to talk to other school kids from other countries, and the situation was basically very similar. There were Jews, there were Germans, there were Poles and Russians and so on. And all of a sudden, nobody uses the term Germans anymore. And we have Nazis. And when I ask who a Nazi is, I may get all sorts of answers. It was a hostile tribe, it was a nation, it was a group of creatures from outer space, it was a new edition of Vikings who came. Nobody knows that very well anymore. So this is why the effort, the commitment and dedication of Professor Piekałkiewicz is very important. This is the principle, this is the priority of Polish government, to not let people forget and let people remember facts, not manipulations. So thank you very much for your effort, Professor Piekałkiewicz. And I'm honored to decorate Professor Piekałkiewicz with the Cross of Valor.
Nice, crushing it.
This is the box. And of course, certificate. And I have a little birthday present. That happened to me about most important events in Polish history in modern times. Modern, I mean past past Middle Ages. So there is a little book about Powstanie Warszawskie, Warsaw Uprising, for the young ones. So Professor can use it. Telling the stories about Warsaw Uprising to those who have no idea what it was.
Great.
And the Constitution of May 3rd. And the Battle of Warsaw, which I mentioned. And the last thing is a similar book, The how Poles rescued Jews from Holocaust, which is similar to the book that Professor Piekałkiewicz wrote. And there is something here which is called Belvedere. I have not a clear idea what it is. I'm very happy I can be here on this spot, but really beautiful day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So good afternoon, I'm Major General Cezary Wiśniewski, I'm Polish Defense Attaché. My service is Air Force, so it's a little bit strange. You were in the army, but at that time the Air Force was a part of the army, so pretty much you are coming from the same source of the military. But it's a great honor for me to be here, and I want to read the letter from Minister of the Polish National Defense, Mr. Mariusz Błaszczak. The letter is in Polish, so I'm going to read this in Polish and after that summarize in English. So, Profesor Jarosław Piekałkiewicz. Szanowny Panie Profesorze, proszę przyjąć najserdeczniejsze życzenia urodzinowe, zdrowia, pogody ducha oraz wszelkiej pomyślności. Jestem zaszczycony, że mogę zwrócić się do Pana w dniu 95. urodzin. W imieniu swoim, oficerów i żołnierzy Wojska Polskiego oraz wszystkich Polaków dziękuję za służbę i poświęcenie dla ojczyzny. Dzieje państwa polskiego to wspaniała lekcja historii naszego kraju. Wraz z towarzyszami broni batalionu Piorun podczas Powstania Warszawskiego dokonywał Pan czynów bohaterskich, które także dzisiaj inspirują tych, którzy służą w polskich siłach zbrojnych. Wyrazem docenienia Pana zasługi w boju oraz wdzięczności za walkę o wolną i niepodległą ojczyznę jest oznaczenie, jakie Pan dzisiaj otrzymuje, Krzyż Walecznych. Dziękuję również za pracę naukową i propagowanie historii Polski oraz wyjaśnienia relacji polsko-żydowskich w czasie II wojny światowej. To bardzo ważny epizod naszych dziejów, który pozostaje nieznany na świecie. Pana działalność przyczynia się do propagowania rzetelnej wiedzy naukowej. Jeszcze raz składam wyrazy wdzięczności za wszystko, czego Pan dokonał dla Polski i gratuluję wspaniałego jubileuszu 95. urodzin. Podpisał minister obrony narodowej Mariusz Błaszczak. So that's a copy of the letter. Just, I'm trying to summarize it for my...
I say something to the general in English and everybody understands. You are from Air Force.
Yes, that's true.
Well, it happens that in uprising, I was in the Air Force company.
Yeah, I know that. I read about it. Yeah, I know that. I know that.
It's very interesting that you came here to give me the medals. You are from Air Force.
There's a tiny reason for for me to absolutely true.
That service in the Polish military was in the Air Force.
Yeah, actually, this is a long story. Probably not everybody's familiar with, but in Polish underground military, there was like a small aviation unit, and Professor was a part of this unit. And at the beginning of the uprising, a lot of people died, get killed during the attack of Okęcie, for example. So they want to get the airport at that time. But that's a sad story. It didn't happen. I'm sorry, it failed. So the AK never get the airport itself. But let me start with some small explanation about this cross delivered today. So the Polish regulation says that it can be delivered only during the wartime or the 5 years, during this short period of time. So technically today nobody can decorate with this cross. But what happened? So Professor was actually awarded in 1944, but because the Warsaw Uprising was over, then nobody delivered this cross. So today it's just left over from the decision which was made in 1944, and that's completely legal. That's why we want you to introduce with this decoration. This decoration in Poland is the second most important combat decoration. So you are familiar with the Medal of Honor. So equivalent in Poland is Virtuti Militari. But the Krzyz Walecznych is the second, the most important combat decoration in Poland. And Consul mentioned about a few international people who get this. I would like to bring a different story about the American pilots. There was a 7, 9, and after that 17 American pilots, we came to Poland in 1919. They created the Kościuszko Squadron, and they fought in Lviv for about a year. So some of this guy actually was decorated by the Cross of Valor after the campaign, after the war, and some of them get a Virtuti Militari as well. But it's a great honor for me to be here with you. I read story about your battalion. I read story about your participation in the small aviation units during the Warsaw Uprising.
Oh, you knew that.
Yes, yes. But we have to correct your rank in a Warsaw Uprising museum. There is still a corporal, but you make progress in the ranks in the military. So we have to correct this. Anyway, so I bring some kind of the gifts as well. It's something which is pretty important for every military personnel. When Poland regained independence in 1989, there was a great dream in our country, in our population, Poles and in the military. This dream was to join the NATO, and it was a long process. At the beginning, we didn't get what we asked for. The NATO wasn't really happy to accept us. But thanks of the people like Professor, we get some kind of the pressure and a lot of information here in the States, which allow American politicians to look at the Poland and our region actually in Europe, and actually make a final decision to welcome Poland and the two other countries in NATO. And this is the small plaque which says that Poland is in NATO. It was a 20th anniversary of that, and this is some kind of the thanks from the Polish military for people like you who support us in the 90s to become a member of this, the military alliance, the most successful military alliance in the world. So thank you very much for your service.
Thank
And
you.
it's like
You don't probably know that I contributed to it more than generally people in Poland know, because I was a lecturer in Command and Staff College.
Oh,
In Leavenworth.
so in the military actually, yeah.
Yeah,
So.
it was not Air Force, unfortunately, in Army.
Well, it was a joint effort actually, but
Fort and Leavenworth.
Liverpool, yeah. So I know this. It was important for us, for Poland and the Polish military. So thank you very much for that, and
So
not only for
I
the service.
spent years and years teaching officers.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.